As a buy-to-let property investor, how do we know if a particular area is going to work well for us? Well, wherever we are, if we look around, there's going to be people that are renting, right? So that must mean it must work everywhere, right? Wrong. That's not the case. Hey, if you're watching for the first time, my name is Saj Hussain, and on this channel I share with you my 15 years of property investing experience to ultimately help you get further faster in your own property investing journey. When it comes to buy-to-let property investing, there's really two ways that we make money. One is the monthly rental profit that we make each and every month, and the second part is the long-term capital appreciation that we might have on that property. What that means is over time, when the property becomes more valuable, it goes up in price to general market conditions without you necessarily doing anything on the property. What we find is that's another way that we make some money. Now, for most buy-to-let investors, that's where the real value is. It's the profit that they make over time as opposed to the monthly cash flow. But during the time you are waiting for that appreciation, you still need to make some money, i.e. the rental profit. So when we're looking at areas around us and we look at pretty much everywhere, as I was saying, there's tenants everywhere. People are renting property pretty much everywhere. Then why doesn't buy-to-let work everywhere? And the reason buy-to-let doesn't work everywhere is because many of these tenants may have been tenanted properties, i.e. buy-to-let property for many years, purchased when they were significantly cheaper. Like, so for example, just for example on this street here that we're on now, some of the houses are £400,000. There's probably a few tenanted properties here, but the landlord didn't purchase a property at £400,000 and then rented it out to a tenant to achieve a modest rent. It doesn't make any sense. And so these properties might rent for maybe £1,500, maybe £1,800. That's it. It's really not that viable. So when we're purchasing property for buy-to-let, we need to think about the two aspects: the monthly cash flow and the long-term capital growth that we're going to get. Now here, for example, in this particular location where our offices are around here in South Birmingham, property prices have grew nice and steadily each and every year over the years. And they generally outperform many parts of the city because it's a strong, vibrant area. Many people want to come and live here. People aspire to move in, as opposed to one of those areas where people aspire to move out of. So what that means is there's a constant demand. It's pushing up prices. There's always a healthy demand for property. So the second bite of the cherry, i.e. the long-term capital appreciation, comes from benefiting by holding the property long term, and we'll benefit more by being in areas that are more desirable. More people want to live. They're more popular overall. Now, with those areas, you really need to look for where the price is the most strong, where we can see potential growth. And I have another video where we talk about location. I'll link that one up just up here for you to watch afterwards. Now, with regards to rental performance, we're looking at a property, for example, in this location. It may be that a 2-bedroom little terraced house will probably vary between £200,000 and £300,000 depending on which part of this particular postcode that we're in, because price will vary that much. But the rent for a 2-bedroom will probably be about £850. Now, if you're paying, say, £250,000 to purchase a 2-bedroom house, and then you're going to rent that out, your gross yield, your overall rent that you're achieving on that property as a return on your investment is probably going to be in the region of about 4%. And that's a tiny return to get when you're investing in property for all the hard work that you're putting in. Some people will invest for those low type of income returns because what they're looking for is just the long-term capital growth. But as a property investor, we shouldn't be relying just on that. We should be making sure that we're planning to benefit from both forms of income or profit from buy-to-let property. Now, let's say you purchase, say, for £170,000, something a bit cheaper, and maybe the rental there, say, £750. It's most probably your return isn't going to be massively better. It may be that you're only achieving something like a 5% return, which really isn't much better than what we were looking at before. So just because you're spending more money, it doesn't mean your return is significantly higher. It may only be slightly better. Really, the returns come when the property value is lower, but your rent is higher. That's the balance that ultimately we're looking for as buy-to-let investors. Personally, when we're purchasing property for the long term as buy-to-let, I'm looking to achieve yields that are higher than 8% to really make it viable, so we gain a reasonable return on that money. Of course, that might be leveraged as well, so that increases the return on that capital employed. But also, the capital growth that we're looking for is in areas which are nice and more desirable. There might be 5-8% returns that we might get annualized. and especially what's been happening recently with pricing, meaning overall we get a fantastic return on that money. It's a lovely day in Birmingham, so we thought we'd stop off at the park and do some filming here. The next thing we need to then think about is the type of property we're purchasing as well. So in an area like this, you get quite a mixture. For example, we've got terrace houses behind us, semi-detached over there. We've got some detached houses here, and we've got a tower block of apartments over there. So we've got quite a mixture of the type of property in any one locality. So when we look at the numbers, we're looking at what is it that's going to work better for us. So for instance, with these ones behind me, these type of properties will probably be your regular 2-bedroom type of terrace properties. The ones over here, in fact, I know a couple of those on that street there are fairly large HMOs, 8, 10, 12 rooms even among some of those houses. Now, when we're looking at the type of property, we can then start working out which is going to suit us better in terms of how much it costs, how much we're looking to invest, and ultimately what return we're looking to achieve. Because here's the thing, with something like a HMO, for example, yes, you'll produce a lot more income, you'll make a lot more money. However, from a single let, you'll have a lot less hassle. It's usually much easier to run and a much more smoother operation when it comes to running and managing those type of properties. The next thing to then take into consideration is the type of people that be living in these properties. So for example, it might be just single people, maybe living in HMOs, or it might be couples in apartments, might be small families in a terrace house, could be larger families. There's also to think about how those tenants are actually going to be paying the rent. So most of them may be working, paying out of their own pocket, but also there'll be other categories, for example, that have some kind of supported housing needs. So for example, it may be that the government is paying their housing accommodation. It could be some kind of supportive living, assisted living, where they need some additional support and care. And all of these different types of tenancies and the type of tenants we have in the properties will ultimately make a difference to the type of income and profit we're generating from these properties. One of the ways to find out the type of tenants that live in any particular area is using some of the online tools to assess the social demographics at that area. This data is normally used for marketing purposes. Marketing companies will collate this data and share it with other marketing companies as well. So the type of newspapers people reading, their income brackets, the type of work roles that they might have, the level of crime in the area, all these give us an indication of the type of people that live in that area. As I said, normally we use that data for marketing, but of course it helps us as well to get an idea of the type of tenants that may be in that area. Now, if you're looking to try and get a much higher income, for example, let's say it's students that you were looking at, you were trying to get a higher income from students. Now, some of these houses around here, you think, perfect, right size, I can get lots of bedrooms in there, work really well, great transport links here. So students are going to love living in this particular property. But there's a little bit more that you need to do rather than just that. So for example, if we use Birmingham as a kind of case study, in the north side of Birmingham, we used to have Birmingham City University. And then a few years ago, it started to relocate to the centre of Birmingham. So literally the whole university campus shifted and moved to a different part of the city. Now that's kind of become a little bit of a ghost town for HMOs. Just think about all the student HMOs that were in that area now have to be repurposed for other things. And now we've also got the Olympics happening there, so the area is evolving. But what this does, it shows us that we've got to make sure that the type of accommodation that we're looking to create for the type of tenants, or what I call a product, that all matches, that all fits. And then of course the numbers work for you as well, because reality, it's about numbers. It's a numbers business. It's about getting an income and also the long-term capital appreciation. But if we get these fundamentals wrong in terms of the type of accommodation, the location, who's going to live there, it's not going to work. And finally, just as with university students who want to be close to the university, you need to think about your tenants, or where do they need to be close to. Transport links might be great, but ultimately if they're traveling to work, where is work and how easy will it be for them to get there? Sometimes in certain areas, people look for large employers. For example, in Birmingham, we used to have a huge employer called Rover, Leyland Rover, if you remember that far back, massive employer, huge number of people that used to live in that area, work in that area. And what happened to that employer? Ultimately, it kind of all closed down and it moved, the factories moved, it got sold. And often people used to talk about a job for life, where they're there working for their entire life. That isn't the case no more. The world is much smaller, people move around, so it's important that you're not reliant on one particular employer. For example, Cadbury's factory, the chocolate factory is not that far, I do love Cadbury's by the way, is not that far from here. Now, if we were completely dependent on that as a source of tenant, and there's already been talks in the past as well about maybe moving the factory, and what if that happened? What if that does happen? How's that going to impact you? So it's important that we're not dependent on one single thing. The number one is the worst number in business, i.e. dependency on one thing. Hey, if you enjoyed this video, then I've got a great video lined up next for you, which is about finding the best possible tenants. It's no good having all these amazing properties if you're not finding the best tenants that are ultimately going to look after the property and pay you rent. So I've got that video lined up over here for you next. But just before you go and watch that video, make sure you click on my face down here to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, because YouTube tells me most people are not subscribed to the channel. So hey, look, we've got 300+ videos for you to enjoy. I look forward to seeing you over this video over here.